you know, in verse 10, you have said, no one sees me. And America's not like that. We don't think our sins are hidden. We put them right out there. Well, not we. I'm not part of that we. Most of America puts them right out there in the world's face, saying, hey, look at me. See how, you know, happy I am to be twisted and perverted. I'm liking it. This. Now, the next little bit, you have said in your heart, I am, and there's no one else beside me. That describes America, but that describes any arrogant nation that thinks they're on top of the heap. Right?
Now, they have been trying, I have told people that they are trying to start World War III. They want us fighting Russia, and the whole Cold War was that was another false flag as far as I'm concerned. I don't believe the Russian people were ever our enemy, but they might be in this Third World War. Although Albert Pike did say that the Muslims would be the target of World War III.
As I'm watching world history develop, I think whoever was running things back when Albert Pike was doing his writing, it looks like they've changed their plan a little bit. I think the same gang of crazies is still in charge, but it looks like they've had to change the plan because they finally realized, like I told them 10 years ago, they completely underestimated or misunderstand the Muslim world, because Muslim is almost a synonym for Arab, and anything that you try to get the Muslim world to do, you got to convince the Arab world to do. And Arabs do not team up and form big fighting armies like we Western nations do. They're not capable of that level of teamwork because they don't trust each other enough to work as a team. So the World War III that Albert Pike prophesied was never going to happen. Okay? So people in charge may have finally realized that, and they're switching over to go after Russia.
I have also said in the past that possibly Russia, it's quite possible, I think, that the Russians and maybe even the Chinese, after being under communism for 100 years, maybe they woke up. Maybe Russia is the hope of the world, and I believe it was Edgar Cayce that said
that. I didn't know Edgar Cayce said that, but from the things I'm seeing in Russia now, that strikes me as a really good prophecy, that Russia's the hope of the world. Because see, the Russian people have never been imperialistic. That has simply not happened. They even after World War II, when they owned most of Europe, they didn't try to incorporate that into Russia and make everybody be Russians. They just put in a communist government in each of those countries, and then they went home. Because the Russians are homebodies. They're as bad as the Persians about that. I mean, when you go to, in Iran, when you go to somebody's house and knock on the door, he's home. That's kind of spooky. Because they never go out. The whole mess with the Crimea, Crimea has belonged to Russia since they taught the Crimean Tartar, or the Crimean Khan, to stop making slave raids into Russia. They finally put a stop to that by just taking over the Crimea and killing him. And it was Khrushchev, a Ukrainian, who gave it away from Russia to Ukraine back in '52. But it's always, it's always been either Turk or Russian. It's never been Ukrainian. So the accusations being leveled against them of annexing Crimea are just crap. And and if you try to look at that as a bit of Russian expansionism, well, it was theirs previously, so that's not expansionism. That's just taking back what was theirs. So and Russia has also always been much, much better militarily than what you saw in either World War. In both times, it was just badly led. The average Russian person is very smart and industrious and brave, it was the leadership they were under in those two wars that really gave a bad image. And so, yeah, Russia could very well be the hope of the world. And they've got a good king right now. Putin is a very good king for Russia.
I think he is pretty remarkable if you compare him to Barack Obama. And I also believe, I also, and this video that we've got up here that we'll be playing parts of, it's he eventually gets down and talks about Putin, and Obama actually predicted biblically in the Bible. And Scumley in my chat room here, I never said I don't believe the Bible. Never said that. You know, I believe the Bible's been twisted, and that this the Jews who say they're Jews but are not are of the synagogue of Satan.
Where is the chat room? I'm trying to get that up to put it on screen and record it.
It's
I can't.
Well, I don't know. I don't know there.
Is it on the video?
If you've got a link, Lynn, for your chat room, you might put that in the chat room. I'll pass it on over to Joshua.
Okay.
And while we're doing that, it doesn't give me that. I mean, I'm here, I'm the host, and so I got all that crap in here. blogtalk.com /host studio. You might try a /studio and check that out. And when Lynn gets here,
copy the link out of your browser, paste it into Skype's chat, and send it to me.
Yeah, well, I can give you mine here, but I don't think that that'll work here.
Clay, can you see the chat room?
Yeah, I can see the chat room.
Okay. At the top of the...
I know, Joshua, I know that. I'm just telling you, because I'm the host here, it may be different, but I'll give you, and you see the Veterans Truth and Blog Talk and all that, but here's the link on my browser. And I'm checking out, Lynn will give me, she's in the chat room, and she's a guest in the chat room. You got to sign in. You got to sign in with your name on Blog Talk. If you go to blogtalk.com, sign in there, and then put in Clay Douglas, and you probably get right to the chat room. But as soon as I can here, I will... We've got...
All right, I'm going through the password recovery routine, so let's move on to another topic while I do that.
Okay, let me do this survive the end days, and again I'll put that.
Yeah, we are looking at the end of civilization. We're not looking at the end of the world.
No, I don't.
But yeah, by the end of the century, there's 500 million people on this planet, no matter what anybody does. And if they're lucky, they'll be living at 16th century technology levels.
Well, that certainly could happen if we've got an EMP. Now, what they're saying here is even the name Mystery Babylon is also deeply symbolic. It's a mystery. Let's hear it.
Babylon is deeply symbolic. It's a mystery because the prophets, at the time of the visions, didn't know of the existence of the North American continent. They literally had no idea what they were actually seeing and described it as best as they could. And in ancient times, Babylon was the greatest city in the world, just like the U.S. is the greatest country in the world today. Ancient Babylon was constructed by people that came from all parts of the ancient world, what we may call today immigrants, just like the United States. This is, again, very, very precise. What about the personification of Babylon in the scriptures as a woman? The prophets used the word her. This is another very precise clue given to us through metaphors and symbolism that are so abundant in the Holy Book. Think fast. What was the most widely known symbol of America? What is the image most immigrants and tourists associate with the U.S.? Is it a woman symbolizing liberty that sits in the harbor of the most important city in the United States? This is very cryptic but important, as it shows how accurate the prophecy is. The prophets talk about the U.S. by using its most recognizable monument, the Statue of Liberty. So why on earth are they also calling it the Whore of Babylon? The sculptor of the Statue of Liberty was Auguste Bertholdi, a Mason belonging to the Great Masonic Lodge in Paris. Before beginning this Statue of Liberty, Bertholdi was seeking a commission to construct a giant statue of the goddess of fertility, Isis, as it was known to the Egyptians, or Ishtar to the ancient Babylonians. The Romans also adopted this fertility goddess, but they changed the name to Libertas in Latin. Liberty in English, Libertas, is the mythological equivalent of Isis and Ishtar. Therefore, the Statue of Liberty is also the statue of Isis, or as the Babylonians called her, Ishtar, the goddess of fertility, love, and sex. According to the ancient pagan rituals, one can only be purified of sin after intercourse with a temple priest or a priestess of Ishtar. In return for this salvation, a gift offering was needed. Ishtar was the patron mother of the temple priestesses and priests. She was the mother of what we would call today prostitution. This is why Ishtar was seen by early Christians as the Whore of Babylon. And that is why the Statue of Liberty, the symbol of America, is called by the prophets the Whore of Babylon. Do you think it is a coincidence that the U.S., the home of the greatest and most famous statue of Ishtar, provides 65% of pornographic movies and adult entertainment to the world? Is it just another coincidence that this is the country where sexual liberation originated and spread to the rest of the world? It's not. It's just like the scriptures foretold. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication.
That's Revelations 18:3. What about that, Joshua?
Was that Revelation?
Well, about this whole Whore of Babylon, it kind of gives you a different look at the Statue of Liberty, coming from, if the guy is accurate here, and about the creator here of Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, well, this one also, it has a strong resemblance to the United States, but I don't think that it is. Looking at verse 3, all nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Right? This is about, in the Bible, when somebody is accused of, when a nation is accused of fornication, it's about worshiping something other than God. And here we have the kings of the earth worshiping something other than God with this Babylon person. And that could fit the United States in terms of the U.S. Turning everybody away from righteousness. But you know, the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Yeah, a lot of people have gotten rich off the U.S., okay? We get on to verse 6. Reward her even as she rewarded you. 7, she glorified herself and lived deliciously. That would be us.
Well, let's go on a little bit. Let's see what follows this Revelations 18:3.
Verse 8 sounds like nuclear war. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire.
Sound like they're talking about nuclear war, and of course the Jews have a demona. Israel has a demona. They have hundreds of nuclear weapons, and they probably produce all the nuclear weapons that Russia and the United States have. I always wonder, who made their money out of that? Well, the people that build the power plants didn't use thorium, which would have been safe because if you use thorium powered power plants, you couldn't make the U-232 that they use in atomic bombs. In other words, they built these power plants to make nuclear weapons. So somebody, and I'm almost to the point where I don't even want to call them Jews. Maybe we should call them like Benjamin Friedman did, the so-called Jews.
I call them, I speak only of Edomites and Israelites because the term Jew is useless anymore.
I agree. It gives them too much power here. Now hang on. The last clue, according to this video, survive the end days. The last clue is the description of Babylon as the daughter of Chaldea.
Daughter of Chaldea. Chaldea is a region in the Middle East, mostly inhabited by Semitic tribes during the time of the prophets. Out of the family of Semitic tribes, the most powerful and influential one today is represented by the Jews, Israelites. According to Scripture, Babylon would be home to multitudes of Jews who left the Holy Land. Today, the largest population of Jewish people is found in the United States. Furthermore, 48% of American billionaires are Jewish and have made their wealth in the U.S., contributing to its rise as the world's only superpower. You might recognize some of the names on this list.
Some of the names on that list, let me give that to you.
Well, the daughter, when I hear the phrase the daughter of Chaldea, all right, and I see all this reference to sources.
Hold on here. What happened?
That stinking blog talk radio.
Oh yeah.
When I hear the phrase daughter of Chaldea, and I look at this passage, Babylon the Great is fallen. Okay, first of all, verse 11 through 13 is definitely not the United States. The merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. The merchandise of gold, silver, precious stones, blah, blah, blah. We don't buy that stuff anymore. We're broke. That's not us. Okay? The daughter of Babylon, what I really believe the daughter of Babylon is the cabal of Edomites who took Judaism from Israel to Babylon, where they perverted it with the Babylonian Talmud and Babylonian sorcery, and the modern religion of Talmudic Judaism today is what came out of that unholy mating of Edom and Babylon. See, I look at this passage and I see Israel.
Well, Israel was started by the British Empire, same as the United States. It was the Balfour Declaration that gave that without any way.
Well, look at Revelation 18:24, the very last verse. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and all that were slain upon the earth. That's not America. That's the Edomites. They are the ones who are causing world wars, slain all around the world. They kill the prophets. They kill the saints. Not us. America is definitely moving into a phase of persecuting Christians. But as far as I know, we haven't got any actually killed yet. And the blood of prophets, Jesus himself told them that, he accused them of murdering prophets and thinking that was a good thing. This doesn't look like the U.S. to me. This looks like Israel. And the daughter of Babylon is the Talmudic Judaism, which says in Book of Sanhedrin, folio 59, section B, that it is perfectly all right to fuck a boy as long as he's under 9 years old. That is a religion from hell. A little bit later in that passage, you find it's okay to fuck a girl under 3, as long as she's under 3. This is the religion from hell. This is Mystery Babylon of Romans 18, or Revelations 18. That, in my opinion.
Well,
I mean,
it certainly could be, and the Mossad's motto is warfare by deception. You'd think that might give some people a clue.
Well, that can be translated a couple different ways. It can also be through deception create wars. How do you like that? Like World War I and World War II?
Yeah, I think Mel Gibson was absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Apparently, I cannot get to the chat room with that link that you sent.
Well, that's
somebody else has got it. I mean, can you tell me how to find today's episode on Blog Talk Radio? It's a freaking useless website.
Their site is bad. Let me look in the chat room. LW and Cyanide and 2 Unearth are in there. If you guys could give me the link that you've got where you're doing this chat room in, I'll pass that on to Joshua, and so I could bring him in. The link that I have is for the host, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. Actually, it takes me to my dashboard where I was a radio host at one point. Not doing that anymore these days.
Yeah, so Unreal Farts in the chat room. Welcome back. Whoever's in the chat room, give me the link on the top for Blog Talk Radio, and I'll pass that on to my guest. We'll see if we can... So far, nobody is able to cut and paste in the chat room, guys. Come on. How about you, Leroy? You just got in there. Show me how smart you are and give me a link to the chat room that you're in right now. How did we get there? I'm always doing the show, so I've never had a chance to check that out. Give me the link, Leroy. Give me the link. Get there, that little thing up there at the top of the browser. It's called a link. Give me the link of the room that you're sitting here chatting with me in. Then you do that. Copy and paste. Jesus Christ. One of the things that bothers me, the elite have made the statement. Leroy says all you have to do is log in to the show and it comes up.
I don't give a diddly what he thinks I have to do. Send me the link and I'll click on it, or I'm not freaking going there. I have been fishing around this stupid Blog Talk Radio website for 45 minutes trying to find it. I'm done. I can't even log into the show because when I search on your name, it won't show me the most recent.
All right, let me give you the link that everybody uses here. Let me try to do that. We'll try to do it a different way.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a today's show section on your website right at the top. I
do, Joshua. I do, and if anybody goes and clicks on your name on my website, then it It's supposed to take you right here, and it seems to work for everybody else. But let me see here.
All right, I just pulled up freeamerican.com.
Okay. Here is your link from the show.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. Every show, everybody's name has that link, and the only thing that changes is a date. Today's show is the 11th. That's the only thing that changes. The Free American Hour.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Just FYI, I just pulled up freeamerican.com. Okay.
Okay.
I don't see my name on here anywhere.
It's on the left-hand side in big letters. On Thursday, it says Joshua Daniels. On the left-hand side, under.
Nope.
Says Joshua Daniels, Thursday, June 11th. I got a whole list of days here on the 11th.
Holy cow! This is, I gotta scroll for like a minute and a quarter to get down to that.
Yeah, the site's big. I'm trying to rework it. I'm trying to make it smaller, but I got
I was just thinking that, right at the top of the page, a today's show, just a small banner. Click on that banner, and it takes you to, all right, I just clicked on my name on Free American, and I got the address wasn't understood.
What?
I see. There's in front of the HTTP. There's an A. There's a letter A.
Let me look at that.
Minor typo.
Oh, okay. Yes, it did. That's a mistake. I'll take that out, and I'll save that. Okay, now that should work. Sorry about that.
All right.
The A is not. Okay, it's clear now, and there we go. And here you are. This is the.
And finally, here we are. I'm able to get chat up and recorded. And here we are. I'm able to get.
You might cut down the volume there. Okay. Because you'll get a feedback because you're my guest. You're on the Skype. You're broadcasting on the Blog Talk.
I know. So. I couldn't find the pause button.
Okay.
Okay, I found it. So I just.
I'm sorry about that A being in there. Don't know how that got in there. I was having problems hooking up to everybody. I was late getting on veterans, so.
Okay. All right, now we're recording the chat room as part of the show. Okay, cool. All right, we were on Mystery Babylon and her various adventures. Yeah, when I look at that, especially.
Yeah, you're in Sealions Cafe. Welcome, Sealions.
Hey. Okay, now I'll get really distracted. I can type in the chat room and talk to everybody. At the same time, I'm trying to be a guest on the show. That'll make for a really disjointed discussion. I just, all those Mystery Babylon references, I think, have to do with Babylonian Talmudic Judaism. That is the one thing that we can definitely say was born from Babylon. Because after the Bar Kokhba rebellion in 132 A.D., the Jews were never exiled from Israel. That is a barefaced lie that they tell. Right? The people that left sold their land and moved to Babylon. They have no longer any right whatsoever to that land in Palestine. They sold it. They went to Babylon, and they got together with the Israelites and the Edomites who were already living there, and they formed this thing called Talmudic Judaism. And they wrote the Babylonian Talmud. And that's where I think the Bible is referring to the daughter of Babylon, is this Talmudic Judaism. Because the Babylonians were into a lot of weird stuff, especially various kinds of sorcery and voodoo. But when you combine that with the really sick emotional problems of Esau's descendants, the Edomites, it just really got nasty. The famous Israelite historian, Arthur Kessler, the guy who wrote the 13th Tribe, in his autobiography, he wrote he grew up non-religious at all, and then when he learned about the Talmud and the Torah, he said the Talmud was supposed to be an explication of the Torah, but to me it looked like a series of rationalizations about how to do the exact opposite. Like in the Torah, it says, "Thou shalt not lie with a man as one lies with a woman, and he who do this have done what is detestable and must be put to death." The Torah says, well, if you really want to do that, or not the Torah, the Talmud says, you know, you can screw a boy as long as he's under 9 years old. And the Torah says plainly, the first 5 books of the Old Testament says plainly, on Sabbath, you're not to do any work. Your servants aren't to do any work. Nobody's supposed to do any work. So the Talmud rationalizes that and says, well, you can have a Shabbos goy who comes in and does the work. You can, a servant who does the work. But it's crap. It's just crap. And it's also there that they came up with whatever the crap is that's in the Cabal. I have not read the Cabal. I'm not going to. I don't care. I've seen enough of the fruit that comes from it to know that it's either nonsense or it's really well-written evil. And either way, I just don't care. I know who these people are in general, and I know that according to the prophet Obadiah, at one point they're going to be hunted down and killed. All of them, to the last man, woman, and child. That's also something that has to happen before the end of the world. So I'm not looking at the end of the world, and everything I see about Mystery Babylon tells me that's Israel. Or actually, it's the Talmudic Judaism. That's Mystery Babylon. And Talmudic Judaism's expression as a nation is the modern nation of Israel.
Well, the Jews that they were talking about in this film was Lloyd Blankfein, CEO of Goldman Sachs, Jewish. Bob Zoellick, president of the World Bank, Jewish. Ben Bernanke, ex-chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jewish. Alan Schwartz, CEO of Bear Stearns, Jewish. Alan Greenspan, Federal Reserve chairman under Reagan, Bush, and Clinton, Jewish. George Soros, Jewish. Howard Schultz, chairman and CEO of Starbucks, Jewish. Levi Strauss, Jewish. I mean, the list goes on and on here. Let's see what else they got to say about it. Hang on, hold on.
Yep.
Michael Bloomberg, Rupert Murdoch, Jeff Zucker, president of ABC
The daughter
News.
of the Chaldeans. The nation that the Jewish people helped rise to superpower status is the United States of America. The U.S. today has the most powerful economy and military, controls worldwide commerce, is proud and arrogant, has the most developed Air Force and space program, and is the envy of the world. It houses the whore of Babylon, is the daughter of the British Empire, and the child of the Chaldeans. And unfortunately, for every living American, Mystery Babylon. Why? Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her. Take balm for her pain. If so be she may be healed. A sound of a cry cometh from Babylon, and great destruction from the land of the Chaldeans, because the Lord hath spoiled Babylon, and destroyed out of her the great voice.
Revelation
Therefore
18.
shall her plagues come in one day, death, and mourning, and famine, and she shall be burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. At the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations. Sit thou
Isaiah
silent.
47. Sit thou silent, and get thee
And
into
get
darkness.
thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. All three prophets tell of the fall of Babylon, the destruction of the United States of America as we know it.
Scholarship.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One thing that really argues against this particular guy's biblical scholarship is he keeps saying Chaldean. It's Chaldean. It's the sound you hear most often.
This is not an event that happened to ancient Babylon.
Hold on. Go ahead.
It just, I don't know, it irritates me that people can hear and then not make the same sound that they heard. I know he heard it in Bible school. If he went to a Bible school, it's Chaldean. Jeez.
Chaldean, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, like a cage.
Where did that come from? Who are these? I'm not familiar with them, frankly. I'm not familiar with the name or the term. What are they? What is he trying to talk about?
They're an ancient tribe that rose up in competition with Assyria, and those two nations actually clashed several times. The Chaldeans gave us Abraham, the original Hebrew. He was Chaldean. When you buy look at a Hebrew dictionary, if it's honest, the title is Hebrew-Chaldee Dictionary, because Abraham spoke Chaldee, which people started calling him a Hebrew, and so this Hebrew language is just a derivation of Chaldee. Whatever changes it's gone through over the thousands of years, but it started out as the Chaldee language. And they were your basic Middle Eastern tribe with all the same lusts for power and sex as everybody else, and they became a nation. And I think they're the ones that took. No, they didn't take down Assyria. That was the Medes. But they grew up into the power vacuum left when Assyria fell, and they were great for a while. I mean, as great as you can be when you're building with mud, brick, and stone. But that's who the Chaldees were, just in a Middle Eastern tribe.
Okay.
Matter of
What
fact,
do they have to do in the modern day world? Where's the connection?
Well, they gave us their sorcerers working with the Edomites who moved there after the Bar Kokhba rebellion in 132. They left Israel and they went to Babylon. They got to the Babylonian sorcerers, and those Edomites gave us the so-called Jewish Kabbalistic teachings, that secret writings about spiritualism, which I don't know why they call it secret. You can buy a copy in any bookstore. And they gave us also Talmudic Judaism. They took the law of Moses and stood it on its head and created a complete perversion of it called Talmudic Judaism. That's what the Babylonians gave us, the Chaldeans.
Okay.
So they gave us modern Judaism. That's what the Chaldeans gave us. And the daughter of Babylon is modern Judaism.
What about this nuclear destruction? I mean, Didn't the Bible did say we wouldn't be destroyed by water again?
That's true. Next time it'll be by fire.
By fire.
Well, we see the prophecy in Isaiah 24:6, where he says there will come a time when there are few men left in the whole world, and those are burnt. How do you like them apples?
All right, let's see what else this guy. You may not agree with him, but let's gives us a basis for conversation here. Let's see what else he says. This is talking about this destruction by fire is not an event that has happened to ancient Babylon in the past.
In the past, history has never recorded the fall of a state or a city in the way described by the prophets. And just like all the events accurately predicted by the Bible, the 2 world wars, the rise and fall of communism, and the return of the Jewish people to their homeland, and so many others, this too will happen. The only questions left to ask are, who will cause its fall? When and how? They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. For out of the north there cometh up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate. For I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, draw a straight line north of the U.S. through the Arctic, the end of heaven, and you will find the answer. Russia is the great enemy of Babylon, the enemy destined to destroy it. The Holy Scripture is again very precise. Even though it has been written centuries before the U.S. or Russia became world powers, it clearly describes both countries that are prophesied to start World War III. And at the start of World War III, Russia will use a very special weapon, the weapon of indignation against the whole territory of the U.S., and then lead the invasion of a great assembly of nations. Now that we know who is responsible, the next logical question is, when will this happen? As you have seen before, we are going through the biblical end times. Babylon America has fulfilled the prophecies that foretold its coming, and now, according to the Bible, it will meet its demise. The clues about when the great disaster shall befall it are hidden in the book of Daniel, another major biblical prophet. In chapter 1140 of his prophecies describes a great war fought by 2 kings at the end times, one from the north and one from the south. So, if we could connect these 2 kings to 2 current world leaders, we would know how close we are to the destruction of Babylon. The key to understanding the clue of the 2 kings is the position of Jerusalem, because this is where Daniel had his revelations. To the north of Jerusalem is St. Petersburg, birthplace of Vladimir Putin. What else does the prophecy say about the king of the north? And the king shall do according to his will. Putin does what he wants. He controls the media, the military, and the economy of Russia. Neither shall he regard the gods of his fathers, nor regard any god, for he shall magnify himself above all. The fact that gods is not written with a capital letter is a clear clue to what exactly the prophet is referring to. Communism. The gods of the communists are Lenin, Marx, Stalin, who have ruled Russia for over 80 years. They are practically worshipped by the Russian people, and statues and pictures of them were everywhere across the USSR. But as prophecy foretold, Putin distanced himself from communism and denounced its flaws and sins against Russia and the Russian people. He shall magnify himself above all. Russian media portrays Putin as a huntsman, judo expert, chess master, brilliant politician and diplomat, pilot, and overall strongman, above the former communist leaders in every way. But in his estate shall he honor the God of forces. Russian military spending has exploded since Putin came to power. This is how he honors the God of forces. There it is. Vladimir Putin is undoubtedly the king of the north that will guide Russia in the end times. But what about the king of the south? Geographically, he has to be born in the south of Jerusalem. Barack Obama was born either in Hawaii or Kenya, depending on who you want to believe, both of which are in the south of Jerusalem. But what does the prophet say about him? And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Never in our history have so many people disagreed with U.S. policies or hated the United States, Russia, China, North Korea, a big part of the Muslim world, including Syria, Egypt, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the list goes on and on. Remember the assembly of great nations that invade America. These clues prove that Obama is the king of the South as the prophecies foretold. So if Barack Obama and Vladimir Putin are the kings of prophecy, then their war must start before they leave office. That means January 2017. The end of Babylon is very, very near, and we are directly on course for this prophecy to be fulfilled. And Obama is playing his part to the letter. And at the time of the end shall the king of the South push at him. These words are coming true as we speak. Remember, according to the prophecy, Russia must unexpectedly use the weapon of indignation first, and then invade alongside its allies. Alarmingly, Obama's push has started as far back as 2011. Syria. Syria is an oil-exporting country with strong ties to Russia and home of the only Russian naval base in the Mediterranean. Clashes broke out between CIA-backed and funded protesters and government forces in April 2011. The Obama administration armed any opposition force in Syria, although some of the rebels were openly Islamic fundamentalists and jihadists. On the 21st of August 2013, chemical weapons were used, and Obama pushed for a military intervention in Syria in a very tense standoff. Both Russia and the U.S. deployed a huge number of warships off the Syrian coast. Putin blinked first and forced Syria to surrender its chemical weapons to be destroyed under international supervision. Ukraine, CIA-backed and funded protests against the pro-Russian leadership. Putin has lost one of his key allies in the region. Although it annexed Crimea, Russia is now in an undeclared war with its eastern neighbor. Even more alarmingly, a massive amount of NATO hardware has been sent to Russia's border. Russia itself. Project Star Wars, a missile defense shield, is being set up in Europe and the U.S. as we speak. Officially, its target is Iran, but the real target is Russian nuclear weapons capability. And Putin knows this too well, and this clip shows.
Довод на атаку. Ракетный щит возводится не против вас,
The
а
missile
против
shield
Ирана.
was not.
The Ukrainian conflict saw the Western powers led by Obama imposing drastic economic sanctions on Russian banking and energy sectors, key parts of Russian economy. Interestingly, economic sanctions have preceded every U.S. war in the 21st century. Russian oil exports were the target of a secret deal signed between Obama and Saudi Arabia that caused the price of oil to dive from $100 a barrel to close to $40. Russia is dependent on oil exports as 40% of its budget comes from it. That is why the Russian ruble, the Russian currency, has lost 50% of its value since August 2014. That means that people in Russia can only buy half the stuff they used to afford. Once poverty starts kicking in, the Russians will want blood, and Putin will be left with very few options. Because when Russia falls apart, war will be the only option. And the King of the North knows this too well. You are now witnessing the last months, maybe weeks, before the Russian attack that destroys Mystery Babylon, Obama's America. The Bible tells us all about the Russian attack, and most importantly, Putin's weapon of indignation, a weapon unlike anything the world has ever seen before. This weapon can hit an entire country. How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations? This weapon makes the U.S. military unable to respond, broken because of what looks like equipment malfunction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? The mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holes. Their might hath failed, because the spoiler is come upon her, even upon Babylon, and her mighty men are taken. Every one of their bows is broken, and this weapon leaves Babylon silent and in darkness. Sit thou silent, and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. There is only one weapon that can affect an entire continent, leave the military unable to defend itself, and plunge America into silence and darkness. Vladimir Putin's weapon of indignation is an electromagnetic pulse. An EMP, or electromagnetic pulse, is an electromagnetic discharge that fries sensitive circuits within minutes, even seconds. Most modern-day appliances, the gadgets we use daily, and even the U.S. power grid all have sensitive circuits built in. Think of a normal blackout when you don't have any lights, heating, or internet. Only an EMP blackout is permanent and on a large scale. This means you can also say goodbye to telecommunications, transportation, and even utilities. Silence and darkness. Military command and control, as well as most of the high-tech equipment, is very vulnerable to an EMP. One blast will reduce our army to fighting using weapons that existed before the 1900s. This weapon fulfills Bible prophecy to the letter. It's swift, has a huge area effect, knocks out our military, breaks the hammer of the earth, and sets the stage for the assembly of nations to invade. And all it takes is not 100, not even 50, but just one warhead to be detonated above the U.S., and the effects would be irreversible. EMP device that can be strategically detonated at an altitude of 20 miles above the surface of our country that will permanently cripple our power grid and plunge America into silence and darkness. The real danger of an EMP is it could happen without any signs or warnings, and the King of the North has drilled his soldiers to do exactly that. There's never been so many nuclear drill exercises targeting the U.S. in recent history. Putin is preparing to fulfill his role according to the Holy Book. The effects of the EMP will destroy America as we know it. Looters, famine, civil unrest, and finally, the foreign invasion.
All right, what do you think about that? I put up on my website, I've got links talking about that EMP weapon. I put that up months ago.
I am not slightly worried about EMP. Okay. Not in the slightest.
Okay.
Tell you why. It's theoretically possible, right? But remember in the 50s and 60s when they were doing all those nuclear tests outside Vegas?
Yeah.
Okay, well, how often did they blow out all the lights in Vegas and everything had to be replaced?
Don't recall that happening.
It did not happen. It did not happen. And yet the EMP is supposed to be an effect of every nuclear bomb. Now, to build an EMP bomb, you do it a little differently from your regular nuclear bomb because you're focusing on a certain type of yield, okay, just like the neutron bomb. Okay, the neutron bomb is supposed to be very good for EMP. But when they were testing neutron bombs, how often did the lights in Vegas go out? They didn't. So until somebody actually makes one of these things, and we hear about a city where they tested this bomb and it blew everything, all the electronics in the city completely out, such that they had to be replaced, I'm not worried. This is a boogeyman. As far as I'm concerned, really, I think EMP's a load of crap. And you know, I'm in the solar power business. You know, I know a little bit about electricity. If somebody, you know, for a while we offered EMP hardened systems and nobody wanted one, it's like, okay, because you know it's just not that big a deal. Now I want to direct your attention to Jeremiah 51:7. Let's see. Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunk. The nations have drunk of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Now, 120 years ago, this planet was relatively sane, wasn't it? Sane and rational. Today, it's nuts. There are people walking down the street who believe that kerosene turns 2 American skyscrapers to powder.
That would be now, 3 American skyscrapers. Up!
Oh,
one of them wasn't hit by a plane, so...
No, the third one didn't fall from kerosene. That was peer pressure. It's like, well, everybody else is jumping off a bridge, so I should too. Who has made the world, and who has driven the world insane? What group of people?
The Jews.
Okay, so who is this passage probably about?
The Jews who say they're Jews but are not.
That's where I'm going with this. Yeah. I mean, I look at this and I see some real positive clues that it's them. Like, hang on here. There's a mention of Israel and listen to this here. Here we go. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name. This is verse 19. This is talking about Jacob, which would be which would include the actual Jews, not those who say they're Jews but they're liars, and Israel on the same side. Okay, so where do we find that to be true? Most of the Western world. We know where the lost 10 tribes of Israel went and who they mixed with, right? And that's where the Jews are living happily, and the real Jews are living happily and unoppressed. So he's talking about them being on the same side, and he says to them, you are my battle axe and weapons of war, for with you I will break in pieces the nations, and with you I will destroy kingdoms. That sounds like the U.S., but we're not the ones who are going to get destroyed here. It sounds like we're the ones who use these to destroy. And it is our history to tear up other nations. For good or bad, that is kind of what we've got a reputation for. Right? And to Babylon, he says, behold, I am against you, O destroying mountain, says the Lord, which destroys all the earth. And that is the pollution problem is at its core. You're going to find these people who say they're Jews but they're liars. They're of the synagogue of Satan. Because I mean I don't know what their problem is, but they love to destroy. Right? The ecological movement, the idea of taking care of the world and that it can actually be damaged by mankind's activity, grew up in Germany in the 1600s. This was not a Jewish thing. This is a white boy thing, to take care of the world. Right? The destroying mountain is those greedy Edomites who, when conducting some industrial operation, rather than, let's say they make $80 million profit. Well, rather than spend $20 million cleaning up the mess, they keep the $20 million and let the mess go, because for some reason, $80 million is not enough. They need $100 million. And they just destroy the land wherever they go. And then there's another clue later in here. Down in and it is in searching. Yeah. Now I'll find it. Let's move on to another topic while I look.
All right, let me see if this video we've been talking about has anything left here.
Okay.
As the scriptures predicted, therefore shall her plagues come in one day.
I'm going to play this while I get a cup of coffee.
And famine, and she shall be burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. Without hospitals or pharmacies being able to function, people won't be able to take their necessary medication. Pandemics and disease will break out, caused by no waste pumping or garbage collecting, and lack of any basic personal hygiene. As the supply of food breaks down, famine starts setting in, and with it looting and food riots. Some Americans riot on Black Friday over a toaster. Can you imagine what would happen during an EMP when all the power is out? FEMA, law enforcement, and other state agencies will be overwhelmed. Firefighters will be unable to react as their equipment will not work. Fires will break out, and the cities shall be burned with fire. And after the nation destroys itself from within, and without our network of communication, most Americans will have no idea the invasion has begun. This is how the prophets describe the coming invasion. Babylon is taken. Put yourself in array against Babylon, round about. All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows. Shout against her round about. She hath given her hand. Her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down. And the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships. And spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her host. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, and they that are thrust through in her streets. The visions detail the level of devastation this unstoppable invasion will bring. Unfortunately, all of this is inevitable. The word and will of our Lord will be fulfilled to the letter. As chilling as this prophecy and warning is, you should not despair and lose faith. Our Lord will take care of his faithful. There is still hope, as our Lord says through his prophets. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. Besides this, you know the time, which the hour has come for you to wake from sleep. For salvation is nearer to us now than when we first believed. Our Lord has ensured that the ones who believe his word will survive the coming storm. That's why you need to start preparing for the weapon of indignation and the terrible invasion to follow. That's why I'm telling you all this. You have to put yourself and your family first, because nobody else will. I have spent hours in libraries reading books. I watched all the documentaries and interviews I could find. I looked for courses. I talked to all the survival experts I know. I even tried contacting NASA, but I got nothing. All the while, the answers have been right in front of me. There are people in the U.S. who follow the Word of God and live by it. Our Lord and Savior will protect his faithful, and they will continue their lives as they have lived before the fall of Babylon, because the Amish are a very unusual religious community. They live simple lives and maintain traditions that go back over 300 years. They grow their own food for their families. They barely use any electricity, and when they do, it's off the grid. From them, we can learn to survive, thrive, and build a community in a post-EMP world, because the Amish are the closest thing to that. That is why, after seeing the revelations of God sent to us by his prophets, I have lived for 2 years in the Amish community. Unfortunately, I could not make video or audio recordings of their way of life, as any modern technology is forbidden there, but I was allowed to take notes that describe in vivid details the Amish way of life. I have discovered ways to keep food from spoiling without a fridge, and a secret the Amish use to store heat-sensitive medicine in surprising places where you can find drinkable water enough to sustain your family for months, even if you live in an arid region. I learned how anyone, and this includes seniors and kids, can survive without electricity. The only condition is they need to know what to do when the power goes out. Sure, it wouldn't be a luxurious life, or even a comfortable life at first, but your family, your loved ones, and even your entire community can stay alive. They have the true biblical solution to the coming disaster. Here's the good news. I realized that this information had to be available to every family out there. Therefore, I wrote a special program based on the teachings of the Amish to prepare anyone for the coming war and the great tribulations to follow. This program is designed to help fellow patriots and Christians.
Now, I wonder, Joshua, is he planning on giving us that, or is this whole thing a sales pitch? Be afraid, be very, very afraid. The Russians are coming, the Russians are coming. And now, I agree getting back with the idea of getting back to nature, the foundation of every civilization. Richard Kelly Hoskins said in one of his books, was the self-sufficient family farm, and this is what I tried to promote and encourage with the whole Liberty Village concept. But it's just like these magnetic generators. Send us $49. We'll stay on. We'll go down to $37. We'll let you have it for $37.
Well, the question I always have for these guys who are selling something is, if America's about to end, what need do you have for cash? Because once the government's gone, there's no one backing the green pieces of paper. What the hell are they good for? Why do you want them? And, you know, I always ask, if you've got such a great idea, why are you not making it mutually beneficial, like the terraformers that we founded? Anybody who helps us make this happen gets one of our life yachts. I mean, that's mutually beneficial to everybody. You don't have to pay us anything. Just help, okay? He wants you to send him money. Well, okay, that's great. He's selling the product, but he's not providing leadership. That's the biggest weakness I saw there. And like, you know, show a little leadership.
Now, let me ask you about this. I sent you a link, and you already knew about it. They were talking about this seafaring nation. What did they call it again?
Seasteading.
Seasteading, yeah. So
Yeah.
what's it looks like what somebody has done is take exactly what you have been promoting and trying to do and trying to set up, and just try to rip it off.
I've got it up on screen now. Seasteading.org. It's they're not looking at this current civilization with any wisdom at all. They're just going to transplant it out into the ocean. You know, here, let's look at their vision and strategy. Okay, we work to enable seasteading communities, floating cities that will allow the next generation of pioneers to peacefully test new ideas for government. All right? We already know what works. That's don't have a government. They say we strongly believe in incrementalism. Right? That's a mistake, because what you have to do is do something completely different. It's like if you're riding a horse and you want to start driving a car, you can't incrementally slowly get off the horse and into the car. You stop the horse, get off, get in the car, and drive away and leave the horse behind. Okay? Incrementalism doesn't work for social change. And they say here, we believe the first key step is for seasteading to become not just possible, but sustainable technologically, legally, and financially. And they have not addressed any of the financial problems of our current financial system. They just know it's going to take money to seastead. They've got a lot of documentation up here, and it's all about taking this current society, which is dying and hasn't worked for 100 years, and just transplanting it out to sea. But they're going to do some experiments with different kinds of government, you know, see what we like and what we don't like. And that word peaceful up there is, in something like this, is synonymous with preparing to be victims. They're saying, hey, we're going to turn our back on the fact that humanity is a race of predators. We're going to pretend that's not true and that no one will come kill us and take our stuff. So we're not going to make any provision whatsoever for fighting our enemies. And that's what peaceful means in this context. Bunch of frickin' hippies with no clue what's going on out in the world. And, oh, that's interesting.
What's that?
They, some of their things that I've read, let's see here. Let's look at, all they've got on their blog is podcasts. I'm looking on their other research link, looking at law and policy. Here they have the important question: under what conditions will countries interfere with a seastead's internal affairs? What legal considerations give rise to unique business opportunities? What laws and taxes apply to seastead residents? See, they're not even going to try to get independent of the shorebound nations. when what they're doing, well, what they're doing is just taking a piece of whatever nation and extending it out into the water. I mean, they're not doing anything different. This may as well be a house on stilts in Florida. Really?
I've seen those.
And,
I've been there, sailed around it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see here. The true obstacle to the autonomy of seasteads, American law enforcement jurisdiction over homesteads on the high seas. Okay, well, learn to fight back, or learn to disappear. So this problem only exists for them because they're not going to be mobile. It is impossible to rule over someone who can get away from you. And our life yachts, one of our life yachts, you can get away from them. That's just what they're for. Let's see, let me bring up a picture of one of our life yachts here. I'll put the floating home tour. Yeah, we'll get that recorded. The guy doing seasteading, I haven't been able to figure out why they're doing anything. I mean, if they're just going to do it a little bit different from what's on shore, and they're going to go to all the time and trouble of moving out to sea, well, what's the point? Why are you doing that? If you're trying to escape from society, you don't do that incrementally. You know, like you don't incrementally escape from prison. You load your plane, you dig your tunnel, and one day you're in prison, the next day you're not. You don't move your bunk a little closer to the fence every day. That's not how it works. So I don't know what they're doing. It makes no sense whatsoever to me to go out there and remain subject to the insanities of the shorebound nations. And they are insane. They are governed by psychopaths. And they do psychopathic things. With the possible exception of Costa Rica, who actually not too long ago abolished their army. They don't have an army anymore. I thought that was pretty good. Or at least it will be until somebody decides to pick on them. But as long as they're a tourist destination with lots of American expats, they can expect the U.S. government to come down and help sort things out. So that's kind of a defense policy, yeah. But seasteading, everything I've read about seasteading, they're not asking the hard questions. They're not starting from a rational starting point, which would be, what's a good way for people to live? What do people need? And that would be a good question to start with. That's where I started life yachts. Okay? And me and my research team, we started with, okay, what does a human need? We need a place to live. And it's got to have hot and cold running water. It's got to have electricity and lights, and we need music, and we need some entertainment. We need some food processing stuff so that we're not slaves to the kitchen all day. And we need transportation. We need this and we need that. And all those questions eventually led to life yachts and the mobile lifestyle. A lot of people ask the question, well, when the shit hits the fan, where do you go? And we say, wrong question. First question is, can you go anywhere? For most people, the answer is no. So why would you bother asking where you should go? If you can't go anywhere, you should be asking, how can I survive where I am? And if you can go, then you should leave before the disaster hits. When you see that it's happening, that it's impending, you go. If you're living in Germany and it's 1938, you don't wait for 39 or 40, you leave. But that's only going to happen if you're not emotionally committed to living in a hobbit hole. And I'll say this over and over, men are not hobbits. We are not supposed to have one place that is our little hidey hole where we live. We have an entire planet, and we're supposed to be comfortable everywhere on it with our family with us. Yeah. Even Jesus said that. He said, you hear the wind, blow, but you don't know where it comes from or where it's going. That's how it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit. They move around.
You think that might be why I've been in 49 states over the last 45 years? And lived in a half a dozen. Lived in Florida, lived in Texas, lived in Arizona, lived in New Mexico, lived in California, lived in Washington.
Oh, I believe God's hand is on you. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let me kind of branch off here. I was just looking at a book, kind of been reviewing it by Joseph Atwell.
Okay.
Called Caesar's Messiah, the Roman Conspiracy to Invent Jesus. And
oh, crap.
I've also suggested that perhaps Jesus, in my opinion, Jesus was promoted to the rank of God to keep men like you and I from aspiring to be the kind of man he was. And he did say that if that you could do what I do and more. But
he did say that. I don't think there was that he was invented. Just because the original 12 apostles, all of them except John, were put to death for refusing to renounce him. And if you're part of a conspiracy to create a lie, you're generally not willing to die for that. At some point, you're going to crack and say, yeah, we made it all up.
Well, Atwell is trying to say that Titus is Jesus and Josephus is the author of this Jewish Messiah fiction. Yeah, how much did the Jews influence the Old Testament? I've had to ask myself, man, this Old Testament, this God in the Old Testament, he's kind of a bloodthirsty God, and it doesn't seem to me that, the God is the force that holds the atoms together, the intelligence that created our DNA. And I've also suggested that if you're omnipotent and omniscient, you're not only God, you got to be bored to death. You got to be bored to tears. I mean, so what do? You can do anything, you know everything. You create us, mankind, to provide you with your entertainment, with your intrigue, with your romance. And, maybe Shakespeare was right. The whole world's a stage. And we're God's entertainment. And I will be having Jake Wade on this next week.
I think that the God of the Old Testament was bloodthirsty because things went to hell so fast. And, a lot of people don't know about customs in the ancient Middle East, like a lot of the nations that lived in Palestine before Israel got it. It was customary to bury the firstborn child alive under the threshold to bless the house. Okay? Now, if you're a God and you created life and you created this favorite life called man and told them to be fruitful and multiply and set them up so they could have kids and really enjoy family life, and they turned to this kind of sick, twisted behavior, wouldn't you get a little ticked? I mean, God is allowed to say, I'm going to kill them all and then I'll sort them out. Okay? And, that's just one of the sick things that was going on every stinking day in the ancient world. So for him to want to wipe out whole tribes doesn't surprise me a bit. Hell, I feel the same way myself some mornings. I mean, really.
Flash forward to today. I mean,
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
in these
Our
churches.
population-
I've been in these churches, and outside of Dr. Jake Wade's church, and then Dr. Jake Wade is the dean of Timothy Bible College, so I'll be approaching him with this. I'm still working on my master's degree. I finally gotten moved around here and found my my course on eschatology, eschatology, I guess. Not pronouncing that properly, probably. But, you know, it's the churches that I've been to and investigated. They're all preaching surrender, give your soul to Jesus, and you know, I don't know. Nobody showed me any ID, and so who are we talking to? Are we talking to Jesus? Are we talking to God? Or are we talking to Satan? What's
Well, when I go into a church, I'm not there to get anything from those goofballs. I'm there to set people straight about stuff. I know that any church I go to, they're probably Pauline Christians, even though they're not completely Pauline. Like when we get into a discussion and I say, well, do you follow the Bible? Well, of course I do. Really? You allow women to talk in church? Paul said you can't do that. And that's a good place to start driving a wedge between an ordinary Christian and Paul. Right? Because he started out good, but it got weird later on. And a lot of his writings, you have to read him like any other Christian writer. Some of what you read is good, some of it's a load of hooey. But when I go to church, 999 times out of 1,000, that pastor has nothing to tell me. I know more about it than him. I even, there's one I went to for a little while here. I don't know if I'm going back or not. The worship was just god awful. I couldn't believe anybody would subject themselves to that music for half an hour. Like, I don't know what's going on in churches. They're just nuts. Yeah. I go in, I make a few friends, and hang on to those. But if someone isn't capable of learning and growing and doing, if they won't put their Christianity into action, I tell them, look, we finally have a healing room in Tulsa again. You ought to go train as a volunteer and spend some time healing people. Jesus said you're supposed to do these things. These signs shall accompany those who believe. And anybody that resists that idea, then I know this is not a Christian. I don't care what it says on the label or how much time they spend in church. If you're not, willing to heal people, drive out demons, at least give raising the dead a shot, you're not a Christian. Because the boss himself said, here's what Christians do. All of them. So there aren't very many Christians in the world, so I'm not disappointed when I go into a church and find it's a load of crap. Yeah. I myself, I have laid hands on people and healed them. I mean, they were healed under my hand. 5 times, 6 times, something like that. That's not enough for a career as a faith healer, but it's more than most people have. And I can trot it out as evidence. Yes, I am a Christian. These signs have accompanied me. Yeah. And so without any real evidence that they're a Christian, according to Jesus, I just treat them politely and wait to see something real. Yeah. And also, if the Romans had invented Jesus, then we wouldn't be seeing these miracles that we do. And there are plenty of miracles people have experienced that are real miracles, not just amazing coincidences. A friend of mine took me to pray for a friend of his. She had cancer, and she had been sent home by the hospital. She went in for dialysis, and they refused to give her dialysis. They said, honey, you're dying. There's nothing more we can do for you. Go home, put your affairs in order. And so we went over there to see what we could do for her. And my friend, Eric, he took his best shot at it. Nothing happened. Then it's my turn. And one of the things I've learned about praying is if you want your prayers to be answered, you have to pray what God wants prayed in that situation. And the only way to find that out is to ask Him and then shut the hell up and listen. So I got a good track record doing that. So I told her, I can only pray what God tells me to pray here. If He tells me, you're dying and put your affairs in order, that's what's going to happen. Okay, but if something else, it'll be something else. If that's okay with you, then I'll go ahead and pray for you. She said, yeah, go ahead. So I took her hand, sitting there beside the bed, and I just shut my eyes and listened, said, okay, God, what am I supposed to pray here? And the prayer that He gave me was to ask Him to touch her. So I said, okay, Lord, touch, what was her name, Rebecca. And as soon as I said that, a jolt like an electric current went through both of us. And that was the whole prayer I got. 4 words, Lord, please touch her. And she got up out of bed. The cancer went into remission. She lived 5 more months before the cancer came roaring back, and I found out about this later. But she was healed. The cancer went into remission for 5 months. Okay? That's evidence there's a real Jesus. That these kinds of things are happening. So that's,
There.
Oh, you're there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
I
here.
just pulled up my Skype window and like, wait, did I lose that call?
No, I'm here. I'm just listening.
And, my screen recorder crapped out on me a minute ago too. So looks like we're going to lose these last 12 minutes. Oh no, here it is.
Yeah, I never got that video somehow. That I never downloaded.
At my end, it says, let me take a look here. I thought I saw that message earlier today that it said file sent. I'm gonna have to look at it after we get out of here. It's not letting me look.
Yeah, I can't look at it yet either.
But yeah, there's, I don't know, I may have to burn these things onto a disc and mail them to you. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of speculation about Jesus, a lot of writing, a lot of talk, and if somebody has never healed anybody, they've never driven a demon out, raising the dead is pretty rare, but there's a white guy down in Central America, a missionary down there, forget his name, but he decided that he really wanted to raise the dead. Right? And as a side note, all the mythology that anybody's ever been taught about souls and ghosts, that your soul leaves your body and it's wandering around waiting for it's in paradise with God, if that's true, then raising people from the dead is an act of inestimable cruelty. Don't do it. Yeah, God said we should do it, which tells me that when you're dead, you're just freaking dead until you're resurrected for Judgment Day. But anyway, he decided he wanted to raise the dead. And so he embarked on a campaign, is all I can call it, of fasting and prayer. According to the reports I've heard, he fasts every other day. He does not eat anything. And he's got a record now of having raised several hundred people from the dead.
Oh, yeah?
I find that pretty remarkable. Yeah. And if it were only 3 or 4 people, you might say, well, they weren't really dead. They were in that comatose state where the heart beats like twice a minute, and it's easy to think they're dead, but they're not. But, so yeah, if it was just a few, you might say that. But several hundred people, nah.
The local doctors aren't that bad. Can't be. You know, so there's a real God. There are real miracles. There's a real Jesus. And even
I think, to me, Jesus was the first rebel that fought against the banksters, the money changers.
he was. They did exactly what they're doing today. The money changers were Edomites. They were, most of them were not Israelites. They were Edomites. And they were doing exactly the same thing they're doing today. They were trading paper for gold and silver. They had infiltrated the Jewish religion, the religion of Moses, and they formed the parties of the Sadducees and the Pharisees. then they started teaching the gold and silver that you're carrying around in your pocket is dirty. It's street money. For you to bring it into the temple would defile the temple. So what you need to do is exchange it for temple money and bring that in. And so they made, I don't know if they actually used paper or parchment or if they had like a cheap copper stamped coin that was the temple money. But you give them your gold and silver, and you take this counterfeit coin and you drop that in the poor box. And then let's say they collect $1 million in the poor box. Then they would go do some public works project for the poor and spend 50 or 100,000 on it, but they keep about 9/10 of it for themselves. Because they had, you're giving them the real money and putting fake money in the poor box, or using that to pay your various fees and temple taxes. Right? But they were ending up with all the gold, and that's why Jesus got offended and he made a whip, and he committed several felonies that day, it should be noted, when he drove the money changers out of the temple. Them and their animals. Yep. It is, it's the same thing where, I believe it was Malachi 3, where God accuses the priests of robbing him. Okay? And that passage is used to preach about tithing. He says, bring my tithes into my temple and I'll bless you again. You won't be poor anymore. Well, go back to the beginning of the chapter and you find out it was the priests. The people were paying the tithes and the priests were stealing it.
Things hadn't changed too much in 3,000 years, have they?
No, they haven't. No, not at all. Not at all. But the Edomites got singled out for special attention at the end of a whip by Jesus, and a week later he was dead. Yeah, that's who these guys are. And I think everything we've been reading here about Mystery Babylon is about the Edomites. The more I look at it, the more I see again and again and again, detail after detail after detail that says they're the ones this is about. They are, their religion at the very core is this Mystery Babylon crap. I mean, they're the ones who came up with the idea that if you anally rape a child, you'll open up his third eye, or whatever this crap is. They're taking kids and ass raping them as part of their magic rituals. We know they're doing that. There's a whole body of sorceress teaching about how you achieve power by doing that. You familiar with this?
Yeah, that's pretty insane, and especially when you've got a whole Catholic Church supposedly preaching the word of Jesus and covering up for these pedophilia priests.
Oh, by the way, did you know that Catholic priests can be married?
They can be married?
Yeah, they just have to do it before they become priests. The rule is just once you become a priest, that's your primary commitment. You can't make another commitment that might interfere with that. But if you're already married when you go to preschool, that's no big deal. There are many married priests.
Okay.
It's just in media when it's talked about. I don't know if it's a deliberate distortion or what. I think the churches in general have got a public relations problem. They're not very good at getting the word out about themselves and who they really are. For example, any any order of monks that you might know the name to, like the Benedictines or the Cistercians or whatever, none of these is Catholic. They're all Anglican. And I didn't know that, so I met one of them, and he said he was from such and so order, and I said, well, aren't you in the wrong church? This is an Anglican church. He said, no, it's an Anglican order.
Said what?
He says, no. And he starts naming all these other orders. Says, these are all Anglican too. These aren't Catholic. It's like the Catholics don't even have any monasteries anymore. Or if they do, we never heard their names. Because they're not very good at self-promoting and getting the word out there about who's who and what's going on and what the rules really are. In the case of the Catholic Church, I think it's either arrogance or maybe they have been completely taken over by fags and they just don't care about getting the word out that, priests can be married. They just can't do it after they become a priest. They got to do it before. Sorry, am I
So part of they've got their own little mythology going, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, the Edomites have got their own mythology going and a whole school of sorcery, voodoo, witchcraft, whatever it's called, based on it. It's just horrifically evil. It involves mostly the sexual destruction of children. And everything we've read today about Mystery Babylon, I see detail after detail after detail that says, no, this does not fit America. This fits the Edomites, the fake Jews. And it's going to be a good thing because that last one we read, Jeremiah 50:51, talks about Judah and Israel both being healed after this, as a result of going through this process of Babylon being destroyed. Which is what's going to happen when you remove these parasites who are deliberately spreading poison in the world. People are going to start to heal.
Well, they're certainly doing that. It's the Jews, especially they're down there in Dimona, that have all of the nuclear weapons, and they're probably the ones that are building these nuclear power plants, and they're polluting the world. They're polluting the world.
And they've killed the North Pacific. I mean, I look at the construction of Fukushima, how it was built, and the decisions that were made, and I say somebody wanted this thing to get hit by a tsunami.
Well, there's another one too. All of these power plants that are built along the Mississippi River, along the New Madrid fault line, and in my film, True Face of FEMA, Colonel John Brinkerhoff's lecturing law enforcement, in case of a natural disaster of significant magnitude, like an earthquake along the New Madrid fault line, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people.
Wow.
All right, we're out of time. Thanks again for being with me, and
always great.
We'll see you later. And the links are all up on my website for Sealions Foundation.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you, Joshua Daniels, Sealions Foundation. God bless you all. And make a donation, freeamerican.com. Use the, we can certainly use the help. Goodbye.